The Silent Hill 2 remake is finally here, and many fans are wondering, was it worth the wait? The build up to Silent Hill 2 has been exciting or dreadful depending on who you talk to. There was a lot of controversy with this game as far as feedback when it was originally showcased. I myself wanted to go in with a positive mindset. Given the last gameplay glimpses we saw just before the initial release did look promising. So was the hype all worth it? Let's get into it. Silent Hill 2 was originally released back in 2001 and is a classic essential survival horror game in my opinion. It really amped up the psychological horror even more than the first game and really had a captivating story that pulled you in. The story in the remake is just how you remembered it. James goes into the town of Silent Hill after receiving a letter from his wife, Mary, who has been dead for 3 years at this point. James, being confused and hopeful that she might be there in their sacred place called Silent Hill, he drives into the foggy town to investigate. The one thing I always praised about Silent Hill 2 was the story, and in the remake, they kept pretty much all of that the same, with a few additions here and there to dialogue and some changes within the cutscenes. But it's pretty spot on from what it was originally, and the voice acting here along with the motion capture is a real big standout more than ever. Every cutscene was a treat to watch to see how they captured the layers of these characters within the cinematics, and it gets really intense and emotional like it did before. They did a great job at not cutting anything out of the story, and they really kept things intact. It also still has multiple endings. It actually has more than in the original. But as of this review, I only got 2 different endings both times I completed the game. The gameplay is something we have to get into. Many people are wondering how the quality of life improvements were applied to this over-the-shoulder perspective, along with the updated controls. Thankfully, this went over very well, as the perspective works with this type of horror, and the combat is improved over the original, where you can melee, dodge, and shoot one after the other. There is no need to pause the whole game, select your item in a menu, and then go right back to combat to switch up your attacks. So all of this felt really good this time around, as melee and dodging is pretty essential to this combat, so if that isn't your thing, you may get annoyed and might find it tiresome, as bullets tend to be scarce depending on how much you search and manage your resources like a true survival horror game. Enemies are more in your face over the original, as James can just run past many or most enemies in the original game. This one puts them right in front of you. They constantly are on you, sometimes several at once. They hide and trick you at times and pop out from all angles. But the enemies are just as you remember, from mannequins, lying figures, bubblehead nurses, and of course the iconic Pyramid Head, along with other bosses that you remember from the original. The boss fights, however, are especially fun because most of them have been redone and reworked, which I think work even better than in the original, and I appreciated their approach. The map in this remake is huge, with so many floors and layers to each section. When going into the other world, it's even more intense. Let's just say the map is your best friend here, just like in the original. Even with the map, it does get confusing at times on where you have to go and what your next objective is, especially on your first few playthroughs. People that may be used to Resident Evil that jump into this right away may get a little overwhelmed with how much exploring along with the backtracking that is necessary to progress. Way more than Resident Evil. Mind you, this game is larger than the OG Silent Hill 2, so it's even more of a mindfuck with how much this game gives you to explore. Now don't get me wrong, the layers and the graphics on the Unreal Engine are very well done here. Silent Hill has never looked this good, but I'm not a Silent Hill expert or know it like the back of my hand like I do other Resident Evil titles. So when playing the original Silent Hill trilogy, personally, I was constantly checking my map and checking off doors and locked areas to narrow down my options, which was essential. You have to do the same thing here. Where in Resident Evil, I barely have to use my map at all, where it's a lot more linear in its approach. They just have different styles of exploration. Now sure, I was able to understand it eventually, but holy fuck, I got lost a lot on my playthroughs. I think people joining into this remake for the first time may get frustrated with this navigation. Now, puzzles are a big part of the Silent Hill franchise, even more than Resident Evil, I find. Several files can lead to solutions, or sometimes the environment also leads you to several hints for the solution. They still have combat and the puzzle difficulty at the start of the game depending on what you are up for. Many of these puzzles are definitely more intricate than in the original game. And no, I don't think they should cut out the puzzles or they should even cut out sections or major moments of this game, but I think they definitely should have streamlined it more like how they did in the original. I don't think adding more is a bad thing in this case, but I think it does affect the pacing when you don't have objective points on what to do next. This is something that I picked up while playing both of my playthroughs that I just wanted to add in this review. Another thing that they could have added to the character of James is the reactions to the things that are in front of him. So much horror this man encounters and doesn't show any emotion at all when facing the horror of the world around him. Don't get me wrong, the cutscenes are acted very well, and James does show emotion within those cutscenes, but in the gameplay, James is mute. Unlike Leon or Claire, for example, in Resident Evil 2 Remake, they both react to their surroundings while shooting enemies or falling through environments like sewers or shooting an enemy and saying, "Holy shit," or "Don't you just die already?" There's no reaction to James. Just another thing I noticed that could have been changed and can be changed for future Silent Hill games to enhance some reaction from the main character. The entire world of Silent Hill is layered with so many places to explore. It's never felt more open, especially walking through the streets and going through shops, checking out places that you can easily miss if you don't take the time to look around. The sound design is also another great addition to this remake. With headphones on, the sounds of Silent Hill 2 are very effective and well done. The soundtrack is also just as perfect as it was in the original. The game definitely rewards you for looking around, finding resources, and checking for collectibles. Some throwback areas can also be found when you check out the main streets of Silent Hill. I like the fact that you can play this multiple times and still find new things when going off the main path. I mentioned the Unreal Engine 5, which is what the game runs on, but I have to bring up the performance issues here. Many of these are still present as of this recording. The PS5 has constant frame drops even on performance mode, and never stays at a full consistent frame rate between combat and or cutscenes. The same thing apparently is happening on PC, with several settings having to be adjusted for this to run smoothly. This is something that is clearly caused by Unreal Engine 5, but I expected it to at least run a bit better initially. It was just something that was a glaring issue in my first two playthroughs. The story, along with the characters, deals with so many themes of loss, grief, hatred, fear, depression, and desperation. At its core, it captures and hits on the themes that Silent Hill should bring to the forefront. None of these characters are perfect people. They are flawed at their core, and that's what makes it special. All of the characters that you run into deal with similar emotions and feelings that James is dealing with, and some are all called to this town for their own personal reasons and or demons. So now that we're wrapping up everything after spending so much time with this remake, did it deserve all the hate before release? And in my opinion, no, it didn't deserve it. Once I played it for myself, I really did find myself enjoying this remake a lot more than I expected. It is really good when something surprises me even more than I initially thought. This is coming from a more recent Silent Hill fan, beating the first 3 original games in the trilogy within the last 5 to 6 years. Obviously, I look at the recent Resident Evil remakes as a template of what remakes should and should not do, as they definitely were the main inspiration for Konami sourcing this remake out to Blooper Team to get a remake out the door. There was no way that they did not see the success of the recent Resident Evil remakes with how much money they made, and they wanted a piece of the action. Which isn't a bad thing at all. This is why competition is good. I think this remake expanded on what the original did, they didn't cut anything, and they improved on most of the quality of life, given a few negatives that I mentioned as far as navigation and objectives not being there. This is a good blueprint for what to do for the next future Silent Hill sequels and or remakes. I really want them to listen to the fan feedback here, and hopefully more improvements can be implemented within those games in the future. If you're a hardcore survival horror fan, this game will be worth the price and it will be right up your alley. If you're unsure, you can always watch it play through to see if it's your cup of tea. I think Silent Hill fans will enjoy this for everything it has to offer for a remake for the franchise. For Resident Evil fans going into this for the first time, just be aware of some of those main differences that I pointed out when it comes to the overall challenge this game presents and multiple layers that you will be experiencing when running through the game for your first Silent Hill experience. Those are just my honest feelings on this game. And no, I don't play into Konami or Bloober Team's favor, as I don't get paid by anyone to give you this review, nor do I care if I lose people on giving my honest thoughts, as I promised from videos before that I would do just that once I played through the game a few times. It's just my opinion at the end of the day. So let me know how you feel about this controversial remake in the comments below, and don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and stay tuned for more LTRE content. Take care.